Welcome back to AFTV, everyone, and welcome back to the Tactical Insight Show. It's Arsenal who have gone and beaten Chelsea 3-1, got back to winning ways after 4 games on the spin without a win, and boy, did the team need it. It's not just that the team needed a win on the board. I think they needed a win against rivals. They needed a win that really tastes good, and that's now 3 against Chelsea when you're including the pre-season game, which, look, obviously doesn't count in the season, but that's 3 times in a row that we've absolutely battered Chelsea, and it always feels good, doesn't it? And I think the fans need it as well. The fans needed a bit of a pick-me-up. They needed a bit of belief going into Man City's game against West Ham, hoping that Man City will slip up. Otherwise, they've got, more games to come, some away games. And Arsenal needed to the fans needed to feel that Arsenal were going to do their job, and they got back to winning ways, which was fantastic. How did they do it? Well, Mikel Arteta did mix things up, and I really want to explore how Arsenal approached this game and how the players that came in had a really positive impact. We're going to start with, as we always do, the match stats, and a big thank you to Graham, who's very sorry he couldn't be here today, but he has sent through his notes and his thoughts, as he always does. 16 shots for Arsenal to Chelsea 7, 9 on target to their 4, 55% of the ball, and an XG of 2.59, well worth the 3 goals that we got on the day. Let's go to the attack stats. 52 final third entries for Arsenal to Chelsea's 34, 54 deep touches to Chelsea's 27, 20 zone 14 touches to their 14, and a field tilt of 67%. Just shows you how dominant Arsenal were. And if we have a look at the defensive stats as well, 12 tackles to Chelsea 16, 6 interceptions to their 7. Of course, Chelsea had far more defending to do, 12 clearances to Chelsea's 25, and a 14.2 passes per defensive action to Chelsea's 25.9. They had absolutely no interest in engaging with us. They didn't want to press. They didn't want to try and take the game to Arsenal. Well, did they not want to, or Arsenal too good? You got to credit Arsenal for what they did, but Chelsea were poor. I have to say, one of the worst teams I've seen at the Emirates this season, and I genuinely mean that. I thought they looked absolutely clueless. Arsenal did their thing, and the big thing going into this game was Arteta going to mix things up? Was he going to do something different with the team? And he did. Not so much in terms of the system, but in terms of the personnel and how he lined up his team. Kiwior came in, Jorginho came in, and Trossard came in. Now, Trossard absolutely needed to come into the team. I think we've won every game he started in. He came in for the Aston Villa game, started on the left wing. That started a run of 7 wins in a row. He then comes out with the team against Liverpool. We then go on a 4-match winless run. He actually nearly won us the game at Anfield with that pass into Martinelli, and then anyway, nearly, these moments, Liverpool nearly won it too. But he's come back in, and we've got another win on the board. Jorginho came in against his former club. I thought had a really good game, but the big one was Kiwior coming in for Rob Holding. I've been particularly critical of Rob Holding on this show as well. I don't think he deserves all the criticism. I think Arsenal as a collective haven't done their job. But it was interesting that Arteta, even before the game, said, we've been leaking too many goals. There's a problem in defence. We're going to address it. And he saw Rob Holding coming out for a left-footed Kiwior. Remember that. He likes to have his right footers on the right centre-back, his left footers at left centre-back, but he was willing to bring in Kiwior for this one game. Some fans called for it, and we got it in this game. Now, I think this allowed Arsenal to squeeze up the pitch. I think the fact that Kiwior's naturally got a little bit more pace than Rob Holding means that we were able to be a bit more compact. We were able to chase Chelsea a little bit more. We were able to be kind of more narrow. Not narrow, that's not the word. Less space between our last line of defence and our first line of defence. So I was looking for numbers that would sort of prove my point in terms of Kiwior's impact on the game as opposed to Rob Holding. So I wanted to look at how Kiwior did versus Chelsea and his numbers versus Rob Holding at Southampton. I'll be honest, the evidence doesn't really prove too much, but I thought I'd present them to you anyway. Possession wins, the exact same with 7 each. Aerial duels, 8 for Rob Holding to Kiwior's 5. 6 duels for Kiwior to Holding's 11. 3 interceptions to Holding's 1. I do think that is kind of significant. He does strike me as a player, Kiwior, that gets in front of his man a little bit more than Rob Holding does. 4 clearances to Rob Holding's 0, 71 touches to Holding's 95, 53 passes to Rob Holding's 89, but a better pass accuracy of 93% to 88%, and a pass accuracy in the final third of 100% for Kiwior to Rob Holding's 75%. Now, I think, look, I don't think these numbers tell you too much. I think some of the key things are the more interceptions there. I think the improvement in pass percentage. I think these little things are important. But largely, I didn't see much there that suggested to me that, yeah, Kiwior was much more on the front foot than Rob Holding was in the game against Southampton at home. And I think that's a fair comparison. You know, Chelsea were really poor. It's a home game at the Emirates. We needed to win. Same with Southampton. I think other game states play a part. We were behind for a lot of the game against Southampton. That impacts perhaps how much Rob Holding's going to have the ball and those kind of things. But largely, yeah, not too much in it. Let's talk about the first 30 minutes, though, of both games. I think this tells us a little bit more. So our starts in home games, the Chelsea game compared to the Southampton game, we had 5 shots compared to the 4 we had in the first 30 minutes against Southampton. The big thing is, though, that we only conceded 2 shots to Chelsea in the first 30 minutes. Against Southampton, we conceded 4, and of course, we were 2-0 down by that point. Completed passes, 175 to 149 between the two in the 2 different games, and tackles went up from 10 to 4. I think Arsenal, and this is where you do start to, in my opinion, see the difference between Kiwior and Rob Holding. I think Arsenal were far more assured in possession in the first 30 minutes than they were against Southampton. A lot of that comes to, you know, the players are on the ball, and I'm going to show you something in a little minute that proves my point further. You know, the players on the ball, how confident they are, you know, their distribution, how decisive they are with their passing, I think is a big part. But the tackles is another thing. Arsenal engaged with Chelsea far better in the first 30 minutes than they did against Southampton in the first 30 minutes. Again, you're going to have things like the goal, you know, that Ramsdale, the mistake, and Southampton score. But having said that, that would perhaps suggest that Arsenal should be more urgent then and on the front foot, having conceded an early goal. But Arsenal much better in terms of pressing, being compact and chasing Chelsea all over the pitch. And I think one of the things that shows you this is to influence maps. What are these? Right, this comes from StatZone, iOS app. Go check them out. I use them for so much of our research. They're brilliant. But what we've got is the influence of certain players versus Chelsea in the first 30 minutes and versus Southampton. Essentially, the player's name is put in their average position for that first 30 minutes, and the bigger the name shows you how influential they were, how often they were on the ball. Now, if we have a look at the Chelsea game, you got Kiwior's name in the position you'd expect him to be, but Jorginho, much bigger, means he was seeing more of the ball, he was more involved. That looks at tackles, interceptions, passes, everything. If you look at the Southampton game, the Holding position and his name much bigger than Thomas Partey's. He was seeing a lot more of the ball, he was much more involved, but Partey having far less influence. So the changes, whichever way you want to look at it, whether it was just Kiwior coming in for Holding, whether it was actually the combination of bringing Kiwior and Jorginho in because Partey hasn't been at his best, there was a much nicer balance. You can see Zinchenko. Big. His name's big. It's the biggest name there in that first 30 minutes. You want Zinchenko and Jorginho to be the most influential players, especially in the first 30 minutes when you're trying to get on the ball and control a game. And those two were, compared to here, where yes, Zinchenko still saw a lot, but it was Rob Holding. With all due respect to Rob Holding, he's the worst passer on the pitch. You do not want him having the ball, trying to distribute and create from deep. And so I think the introduction of Kiwior and Jorginho had a big impact in terms of, like I said, Jorginho, well, let's not start with Jorginho, start with Kiwior. His reading the game, his pace, his kind of willingness, proactiveness to win the ball early. They're compact. I think as a unit, Arsenal were far tighter and moving up the pitch together, meaning that they suffocated Chelsea. They weren't allowing Chelsea any time in the game. But I think Jorginho is reading the game and calm, and his kind of just composure on the ball, his understanding of where to be and how to keep things moving was a really big thing for Arsenal. A shout out to Jorginho, he was brilliant. But ultimately, I think the changes that Arteta made, bringing in Jorginho and Kiwior, had a really, really big impact in terms of how Arsenal started the game and controlled Chelsea and put them where we wanted to be for a lot of the game. Now, let's talk about the influence of Leandro Trossard, who came in, and Arsenal attacking and on the ball as well. Now, what I find so interesting about the 2 goals that Odegaard scored to put us 2-0 up, you know, within, 30 minutes or whatever, is that Arsenal, they play a certain way. We talked about it. I just showed you there on the map. Zinchenko was very infield in that first 30 minutes. He was very central. We know that's how he operates. You know, the back four becomes a back three. Zinchenko comes into midfield. But there were rotations in the way Arsenal moved. There were rotations in the way Arsenal played that Chelsea couldn't live with. So on the 2 goals, and I think it might have been the first 2 times Zinchenko did it in the game, he actually decided to go into a much more traditional left-back position. He pulled all the way wide and said, you know what, that's absolutely fine. At the start of this move, Xhaka was actually in the deeper role, in the Zinchenko role, in a double pivot alongside Jorginho. But the play moves on and the ball goes out to Zinchenko and Xhaka starts to move out wide. And this is a position that Xhaka's been picking up all season. Why does he do it? Because it allows the likes of Leandro Trossard to come a little bit more central where he'll be more effective. He's not quite like Martinelli in the way Martinelli, he wants that space, he wants to attack the channel, he wants to go one-on-one with Azpilicueta. Trossard is more, he can run past players, but he's more passes, combinations, pockets, making things happen. He's creative. You want to get him in and around goal. And I think Xhaka often occupying that left-hand space on the touchline, it allowed Trossard to pick up those spaces, but Chelsea didn't know what to do with him either. So when this goal unfolds, and we'll show it here, the ball comes into Jesus, and Trossard is making a run in field and Xhaka is holding the touchline. And again, what I say about, Arsenal stretching the pitch and the rotations and the movement, confusing Chelsea, Zinchenko, we talk about him always being in a central pocket alongside Jorginho. Xhaka, we talk about him making the box-to-box runs. But this time they're both wide. I don't think Chelsea knew what to do with him, because once this ball comes out wide to Xhaka, there's no one there to deal with him. And Azpilicueta doesn't really want to commit either, because he knows he's got Trossard, the left winger, who's come inside. This ball comes in, he takes a touch, and he rolls it into Odegaard. And it's a really, really good finish. I mean, unbelievable finish. Some people saying Kepa could have maybe done a bit better, but I think it's a really, really good goal from Odegaard. But what's hilarious from an Arsenal perspective and worrying from a Chelsea perspective is we scored the exact same goal again. Now this move again starts a little bit deeper. Zinchenko's out on the left, but we've got it at the point where Trossard has the ball. Let's get it here. And again, he's pressed, but he gets the ball out to Xhaka. And again, he's got loads of time. No one's really got out to him. He's hugging the left touchline and he puts it into the box. And Odegaard just strokes it in to, this time, the low far post. Arsenal just scored the same goal twice. They scored the same goal twice, and they kept coming from Trossard, Jesus, alternating, getting into central areas, into little pockets. The Chelsea defence aren't sure whether to man mark, whether to follow them, whether to just hold their position. So when it comes out to Xhaka, there's an uncertainty, and he whips the ball in twice for Odegaard, who gets 2 goals. It's not, and I've said this before, it's not dissimilar to the way Kevin De Bruyne used to play as a right central midfielder for Man City. No, I'm not comparing Granit Xhaka to Kevin De Bruyne as a player, absolutely not. But in terms of the role and some of the positions he has to pick up, yeah, very similar. Driving into, on Football Manager they call it a mezzala. Anyway, it's an Italian word for half wing. So it basically means you're a central midfielder, but you drift out to the wing very often. That's what Xhaka was doing all game. He was very much playing as a mezzala in this role for Arsenal, delivering the ball from wider areas and allowing the wide players to act more as inside forwards and come in. It was really, really good from Granit Xhaka. And while we're talking about him, let's talk about this quote that they got from Granit Xhaka after the game, Sky. They were asking about, well, plenty of things. Is the title over? And things like that. He said, no, it's not. We'll keep fighting to the end. But here's a quote on his discipline. They asked him about his disciplinary record improving. He said, that's a very good question. I don't want to lose the other part that I have, because this is what brought me here, but I have to be a little bit more calm. I had a different story here as well, with many red cards, yellow cards. You get experience with age as well. You start to learn about this. I'm looking different, but in me, inside, I still have the other part of Granit. And look, aggression's a good thing. Channeling it in the right way, and you've got a player who's got that edge that you need, especially when you're going for titles and you're competing at the highest level. But you want to keep a player like Granit Xhaka on the pitch, especially this season. And I'll give it as well last season. He's been very, very good for us. You want to keep him on the pitch, and the disciplinary record that he talks about improving, well, he's absolutely spot on. We've got the numbers here to prove it. His average for the last 6 seasons, so this is his 7th season at Arsenal, his average for the last 6 seasons, 44 fouls, 9 yellow cards, 1 red card, and a tackle success percentage of 61%. This season, 23 fouls committed, 5 yellow cards, not 1 red card, and his tackle success percentage has gone up to 80%. it's a really, really dramatic improvement. We've been praising Granit Xhaka all season for what he's done and what I just showed in the goals. The getting into wide areas, the getting forward, the contributing goals, assists. That's 2 assists he's now picked up in this game as well. And that's fantastic. And the attacking areas, it's been brilliant. But his disciplinary record has been fantastic as well, and it has been for Arsenal. And I've actually been wary about saying that Arsenal's disciplinary record has improved drastically this season, because I know the minute I say it, I'm jinxing it for the game on the weekend. Don't get any silly yellows or red cards against Newcastle on Sunday. But credit to him and the team. They've really learnt from the errors of last season where you felt there was a little bit of a discipline problem. Certainly not this year. They've been fantastic. And Granit Xhaka, on the ball, off the ball, mentality, everything has been absolutely spot on. So well done to him. And that is it. Arsenal have gone and beaten Chelsea. And this was the 11 that did it. Chelsea went with something a little bit more attacking with Sterling, Aubameyang, Madueke, but Aubameyang had 9 touches in the first half and 4 of them were from kickoff. They didn't get anywhere near Arsenal. Arsenal, by far the better team. And some people will complain about the drop-off in the second half. Here's what I'll say about that. There was a drop-off, and we analysed it. There was a drop-off against Liverpool after 40 minutes, but maybe that was forced. There was a drop-off against West Ham, 2-0 up after 20 minutes. We talked about complacency. This was different. Arsenal for 65 minutes of the game, I thought were totally in control. Gabriel has one cleared off the line in the second half. Jesus misses one, which I think he really should at least hit the target with at the back post. Saka's had a goal from a shot from distance, go narrowly wide. Xhaka's forced a save out of Kepa. That's 4 big chances that I've just listed in the second half alone. And then they get the goal back, but it's late in the game and they did absolutely nothing after that. Arsenal were fine. Arsenal were in control. And Arsenal won this very, very comfortably. I wouldn't be worrying about the second half performance, knowing that we've got Newcastle on Sunday to worry about as well. Hopefully Gabriel's okay. Otherwise, Rob Holding will have to come in and Kiwior will resort to left centre-back. But I want to know whether you would keep Kiwior as the right centre-back for this upcoming game against Newcastle, considering how well he did. Is he more equipped to deal with what Newcastle throw at us with Callum Wilson, Isaac, Almiron, Willock, St Maximan? They've got a lot of very dynamic, direct quality. And maybe a player like Kiwior, having the game he just did against Chelsea, is really important. I just think the timing of it just before we go into that game is key, because we know he can do that role in some capacity anyway. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hit the like button if you have. Graham does send his apologies. He really does wish he could be here. He sent his notes and his thoughts as always, which we've incorporated into the show. So big thanks to Graham as well. And all of you who do tune into the Tactical Insight Show, really appreciate it. Like I said, hit the like button. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because we're going to keep you covered on everything Newcastle going into that game and what is left of a title race. That listen, we don't give up hope, we keep chasing, we hope for a slip up. Many thanks, see you very soon.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.